So in this video, we are finally starting the street legal Crosskart powered by a Kawasaki Ninja H2 supercharged motorcycle engine. Now, first thing we need to do is let's put the tires on the rims and then we can lay everything out and figure out how big this thing's gonna be. So, this morning I did take these tires and rims to my local tire place and just asked them, like, hey, can you just mount the tires on the rims and balance them? And they were like, oh, it's Friday. We don't do that on Friday. And I'm like, okay, so I don't really feel like waiting till Monday. And then she said that they don't even do it on Monday either. It's only Wednesday. And so I'm just like, screw it, you know what, I'll do it. The only thing is they're not going to be balanced, but that's something I'll have done later. There we go. One down, 3 to go. All right. Now, in case you guys haven't seen that video, I did get this engine running. I think it was part 2 of the limited slip differential that I built for this project where I got this engine running. Turns out the CDI was bad. I noticed a component in there broke off, so I went on eBay, bought another CDI, or ECU, whatever this little thing's called, and I plugged it in, and this engine fired right up, and it sounds amazing. Now, I do need to remove this engine from the motorcycle frame to be able to lay everything out properly, and I'll also take apart the wiring harness. I'm going to take pictures of the wiring harness just so I can make sure that I remember where everything goes whenever I need to wire this engine back together. So I didn't realize how much this wiring harness is snaked all the way around the frame, goes through here, and I have to somehow get these huge bundles of wiring through these tiny little, like how am I gonna do that? All of this has to go through this tiny little gap right here to be able to get it out. So I may have to remove the frame first from the engine, then I can undo all the wiring harness. So let me work on that. Let me get this thing off of this little cart with wheels, and then figure out how to unbolt this frame from the engine. Holy crap. That was not easy. I have seen cars with smaller wiring harnesses. Look at this thing. Get off. Alright, that took a lot longer than I thought. I did have to cut the frame at one point because it was pinched really bad. because yeah, this was in a wreck. Now, in case you guys haven't seen this before, I did 3 videos building this, and this is a limited slip differential using a Mazda RX-7 limited slip diff that I modified to be chain drive to easily connect to this Kawasaki Ninja H2 motorcycle engine. Now, this giant flywheel right here, I added this because I really wanted reverse on this vehicle, and I figured that this is like the cheapest and easiest way to add reverse. I'm going to be using a starter motor that will connect to here, so therefore I can just simply hit a button, the starter motor will engage with this, and be able to move this thing backwards. Now, I decided to make this a 2-seater Crosskart because originally I wanted like a single, because in my opinion, a true Crosskart is a single-seater Crosskart, and a 2-seater doesn't really look like a true Crosskart. But this one being street legal, it'd be really nice to be able to have a passenger. So therefore, on this one, I am making it a 2-seater, but that's not. It's gonna make it to where it doesn't look like a true Crosskart. It's gonna look like something else. They always, a Crosskart has this nice skinny frame with the tires sticking all the way out. But if you make it a 2-seater, then the frame is almost as wide as the tires. So I kind of have to figure out how to make it a 2-seater, but still look like a Crosskart. Now, the way that I kind of start building these frames is I start off with the 2 center rails going from the back all the way to the front, and then kind of everything attaches to those center rails, the diff, the engine, the seats, and then eventually the front suspension, and that kind of determines how long the vehicle needs to be, and then the CV axles determine how wide the vehicle is going to be, and then I just build the rest of the frame from there. Now, I used the arc droid to kind of roughly cut these out because I wasn't exactly sure how I was doing this or where the holes needed to be, so I kind of just roughly cut them out. But now that the holes are drilled, and now I machined these. These will get welded to this plate right here. Then this plate gets welded to right there once I round the corners off of that. So therefore we can mount this bearing holder right there. And then that will fit into the recess onto the differential right where the sprocket is. Now, before I weld this together, I kind of want to just cut just a little bit more material off these because for one thing, they kind of look a little ugly. And also I want to try to lighten them up a little bit more. So I'll, kind of cut just a little bit off of here, a little bit off of here, maybe drill a hole here, and just try to lighten them up a little bit more and make them look a little bit better. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that the arc droid is really, really good at doing, cutting out these really complicated shapes. Now, I know if I spent some hours on some CAD software, I could have drawn these up and cut them out all in one step with the arc droid, but I kind of didn't want... I already spend enough hours each week editing these videos on my laptop, and I don't want to spend more time on my laptop on CAD software, so I kind of just roughly cut them out. Then I drilled the holes. Then I wanted to figure out how to remove a little bit more material off of these to try and lighten them up and also make them look a little bit better. But now that the plates are done, we just need to weld this plate onto this plate with those spacers. Then we need to weld the spacers on this side and this side. Then these are ready to be welded on the frame to mount the differential. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. How the f did I not see that? So, I have been staring at this for I don't know how long because I will admit that is kind of a huge oversight on my part, not realizing that that is going to have some clearance issues. And I don't know what I was thinking. Now I'm mad at myself for not mocking this up before welding these plates together. So this would have been a lot easier to fix if I had just mocked this up before welding it. Now, I've been staring at this for I don't know how long, trying to figure out how in the world do I fix this. Now, I think pretty much the only way to fix this is to just cut all this stuff apart and replace these spacers that have a 1/2 inch through hole
with spacers that are the same size and everything, but with a 1/2-inch threaded portion. So therefore we just use shorter bolts. So therefore we can bolt this aluminum bearing carrier to this and not have to have nuts on the other side. And then it'll be flush and everything. And I'll just use a bunch of Loctite when assembling it. I think that's pretty much the only way to solve this issue. Now I thought of like how hard would it be to cut out new pieces of plates, but I don't know. I'm gonna try to salvage these. So I'm gonna cut these off. I'm gonna cut all the welds and try to see if I'm able to salvage these plates and just make new spacers and then just re-weld all this stuff together. So, yay! I love having to redo stuff. Alright, let's weld this again, and hopefully it'll be the last time I have to weld this. Oh, whoops. Yeah, don't leave flammable stuff right around where you're welding. It sounds like something's rubbing against something. I gotta figure out why it's making that noise, but... Alright, I fixed it. It can now spin with the half shaft in place. Oh, that's what's making that noise. This is scraping against that. So, when I installed the differential, I noticed that it's not perfectly parallel with the center rails for the beginnings of the frame. I took it off, and I realized that on this piece, this right here is crooked a little bit relative to this. So I'm trying to bend it this way. Something that I'm not showing is the amount of hours I'm spending trying to make everything line up perfectly. It's a little too much. A little bit too much. Go back. Alright, that is perfect. Alright, that's perfect. And that is perfect. Nice. Awesome. Alright, so we got the differential mounted on the beginnings of the frame. Now, I did spend a lot of time making sure that the differential is perfectly flat, perfectly parallel, but one thing I will admit is this plate and this plate are not perfectly perpendicular to this frame relative to each other, and it's kind of driving me nuts. Now, this plate is ½ an inch further forward than this one, and I think it's from the rough cardboard templates I used on the Arc Droid to cut these out. Maybe they weren't perfectly symmetrical or something. I don't know, but as long as the differential itself is perfectly perpendicular to the frame, that's all that matters. But for me, it's visual, it's kind of driving me nuts. And I want to fix it, but it's like it took me this long to just do this. And the only way to fix it is to kind of redo one of the plates, which I don't want to do. So it wouldn't be too hard to redo this one. This one kind of took a long time, but it's like, it's just visual. I'll get over it. Now, I wanted to figure out a way to be able to adjust the differential back and forward to be able to tension the chain, and this was kind of the easiest way that I could think of on how to do that. I also made it to where these plates are big enough to where, worst case, if we do have to mount a bigger sprocket on here, there is enough clearance for that. Because I will admit, I didn't do any calculations of the gearing for this vehicle. I kind of just saw this sprocket on eBay, and it's like, oh, that looks big enough. And I bought it, and my plan has kind of always been, if we need to lower the gear reduction even more, I can always mount a smaller sprocket on the engine. But if that's not enough, I wanted to make sure that there is enough room in here to be able to mount a slightly bigger sprocket if we need to. So that's why I kind of made these plates this big. So now that this is installed, let's mount the engine on the frame. I'm going to try to mount it as low and as far back as possible, as well as we need to obviously make it to where the sprocket on this and the sprocket on the engine are perfectly aligned. So when I built the chain drive differential for this project, I did see a lot of questions from you guys of why did I spend 3 weeks making that when I could just use a differential like this. I could turn the engine sideways and just have a drive shaft coming from the output of the engine directly to the input of this differential. I will admit this would have been a way simpler and easier setup. The reason I didn't do this is for this project, I am trying to make it as small and compact as possible, and this setup is not small or compact. Now,
Right now this differential is at the same height as that differential in the frame and relative to the floor and the frame and everything. You can kind of see the height difference between the output of the engine and the input of this differential, and also the output of the engine's way over on this side of the engine. So to try and get the drive shaft to line up better, I'd have to move the engine like 5 or 6 inches this way. I'd have to lift the differential, which is not really that great. In the frame, it's going to make it to where the differential's too high in the frame. It's going to make the engine too far to one side. Just to try to get the drive shaft to line up better. And I mean, I could just mount it like this, but the drive shaft's going to be off by a lot. And then I have to move the engine further forward to try and get it to where the drive shaft's not going to shake itself apart. Just driving this thing, so, you know, plus look at all the dead space in between the differential and the engine. So for this, for a vehicle like this, it really wouldn't work, but for a bigger vehicle, this would be fine. So that is why I did not choose to do this kind of setup. I chose to do the chain drive differential because with that setup, it's a lot more small and compact. So I do need to relocate this on the frame, so right now I'm just going to cut it off. Hopefully this works. Alright, let me spend some time getting this perfectly level and everything, and I won't bother filming that. So if I move this over to the back, I'll be able to lower this engine by about an inch. And then I'll put another one right here, and that'll hopefully make it to where I'll be able to remove the exhaust with the engine in place. So we get the engine installed on the frame. Now some of these engine mounts I'm probably going to want to redo because I kind of don't like how I had to do it in the front. And once more the frame is built and everything, I'll probably redo those and try to make them a little bit better. But for now, I just wanted to get the engine mounted on the frame. Now, I know it may not seem it, but I am trying to make this as lightweight as possible. There are certain things that I do want to make sure is strong enough to be able to handle the kind of horsepower we're throwing at this, but with everything else, I'm going to try to make it lightweight and everything. For the frame, I'm using 1.25" 14 gauge round tubing, which is kind of really thin wall tubing, which is going to be nice and lightweight, but the downside with that is trying to make it strong enough. I'm going to have to add a bunch of cross bracing and everything, but it's going to make the frame nice and lightweight. But certain things like the differential, I wanted to make sure that's strong enough. The brakes, I'm using cast iron brakes for a Mazda RX-7, which are a little heavier than I thought they were going to be, but I really wanted to make sure that this project has really good brakes. Now, next video of this project, we'll build more of the frame. We got to get the seats mounted. That'll determine where and how we're doing the front suspension. I also have to figure out how we're doing the rear suspension. I don't know if I'm doing trailing arms with radius rods or A-arm rear suspension. I haven't really figured out what's going to be the best type of rear suspension for this. For the front, I'm probably just going to do wishbone or double wishbone A-arm front suspension because it's kind of just like the typical front suspension that you use basically on everything. But yeah, I'm getting excited with this project. I'm really anxious to see what this Kawasaki Ninja H2 supercharged motorcycle engine will be like on a Crosskart, which is why I'm building this whole project. This whole project is basically just based around this supercharged motorcycle engine. But anyway, I guess that's it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see ya in the next video.